It's always funny to me when game journalists melt down because they constantly try to attack gamers while defending products because, of course, they're corporate shills. And now they're mad that Dragon Age the Veilguard is already going free for PlayStation Plus users just months after launch. But before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, I totally understand that not every game is going to be for every person. Like with Veilguard, it wasn't a game for me. I talked about it, I gave it a shot, I did a full playthrough on the channel. I just did not enjoy it. It was filled to the brim with identity politics. The environments were okay, but definitely not as impressive as they could have been. It was pretty buggy. I did not really connect with any of the characters. It just wasn't a good experience overall, in my opinion. And there are some people out there who liked it, which is great. I want everybody to enjoy whatever game they want. But when it comes to the Kotakus and the gamers and polygons, they have tried to defend this game tooth and nail because it does push the agendas they support, and the people behind this project are very inclusive people who want to, quote, better the industry in the way that they feel it could be bettered. And now Kotaku is complaining that this game is free just months after launch, which I, of course, think is funny. This is not a game that I would recommend anybody spend any money on. Now, I don't like to tell you guys what to do with your money. You're adults. You can buy a game if you want to. You can boycott a game if you want to. But I suppose if you have PlayStation Plus and you can get this for free, you might as well put it in your inventory. Though I just don't think that this is a good addition to, like, really anybody's library. I don't think it's a game that people would want to sink a lot of time into, except for, I guess, Kenneth Shepard here. He says, after it endured a decade of development hell and heaps of culture war BS, it's a shame more people haven't played Dragon Age the Veilguard. Yeah, guys, if you actually criticized this game, if you criticized BioWare, if you've talked at all about the culture war and the fact that there are activists within this industry who are tearing games apart, you are part of the problem. Why didn't you buy this game, you ists and phobes? I think it's hilarious that they start off this way, talking about culture war BS, when Kotaku has provided material into this quote-unquote culture war BS. They've allowed people like Alyssa Mercante to publish Gamergate 2 articles and talk about organizations like Sweet Baby Inc. They constantly belittle gamers and attack gamers. Yes, you are part of this quote problem as well. I think it's hilarious that they think that they are like the saviors of the industry when really they are the ones who are tearing it apart. It goes on to say that's not even to mention the restructuring at BioWare that followed in the wake of the game's release. Maybe if they created a really good Dragon Age experience, this would have sold more copies. Maybe if they weren't focused on modernizing this franchise, this game could have sold more copies. Maybe if they just put a little bit more effort in during any of those 10 years, this would have come out to be a slightly more enjoyable experience, but it really wasn't. It didn't feel like Dragon Age. It felt like a young adult, modern fantasy title. It just really was not good in any way, shape, or form. Publisher EA says about 1.5 million people played the long-awaited fantasy RPG as of January. I don't know how they could have ever expected a game like this to do well. Maybe it's just because the people within BioWare were telling the higher-ups, oh, this is what gamers want. This is definitely going to work, because they enjoyed the themes that they put into the game. But ultimately, while developers, yes, should like the product they're creating, they're not creating it for themselves. They need to have an audience, and that's just what a lot of devs don't understand at this point. They expected this game to sell 10 million copies originally in its opening. They thought that within the first 3 months, this was going to sell 10 million copies, and then of course, those estimates got lower and lower and lower, and their lowest was 2 million, and it couldn't even hit that. Now, of course, they're trying to pump up those numbers by giving it away for free. This is the quickest turnaround from launch to a PlayStation Plus release that I have personally seen. Usually it takes a year, like even Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was 1 year after release before it was put on PS Plus, but this is only 4 months. That is crazy to me. Despite all that, the Veilguard is still a really solid action RPG that should have marked a clean slate for BioWare after the studio spent years getting out from under the live service and open world misfires that plagued games like Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem. Now EA seems to be squeezing any remaining players it can get out of it, as Dragon Age the Veilguard will be free for PlayStation Plus subscribers in March. This is all just boo-hoo, you need to cry for BioWare, and I'm not going to do that. They were a legendary studio once, and I loved them, don't get me wrong, but I can recognize the fact that many studios now are shells of the companies they once were, like with Obsidian, like with BioWare and Rocksteady, and that's a shame, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, these poor developers, because they ended up getting paid, they ended up creating this product, and maybe, again, they should have done a better job and it would have turned out to be more successful. The Veilguard is the headliner alongside some of the other good selections like Sonic Colors Ultimate and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection. Each game will be available to Plus subscribers on March 4th, and yeah, I do think that these other two games are really good and you should pick them up, and you could put Veilguard in your library. I just don't think that it's a game that a lot of people are really going to enjoy, and clearly a lot of people didn't show up to support it in the first place. While we do not know the exact console number breakdowns, and all they've really said is that it's engaged 1.5 million players, meaning that might not even be 1.5 million players who bought it. They could have bundled it and given it away for free, and those numbers count, and I'm sure that these PlayStation Plus numbers will raise it a little bit higher. I don't necessarily know if they're going to hit the 2 million mark like they originally wanted, though, as we can see just on Steam alone, it did terribly. The all-time peak 4 months ago at release was 89,418, which is already super low for a AAA experience. Look at something like Monster Hunter Wilds right now. That's hit 1.3 million players. Look at Black Myth Wukong, 2.4 million. Hogwarts Legacy, 850,000. Games can hit really crazy numbers, and you would think a studio this prestigious would be able to do that. And right now, there's 2,413 players in game, and sure, whenever a single player title comes out, people are playing it, and then they finish it, and then they don't come back until there's DLC or updates, and this game is already dead. They're not doing any DLC for it, and they've basically abandoned development on it. So these numbers are just going to be what they are going to be, though the way that it had launched was not a positive one for BioWare. And at the end of the day, I can't say I'm particularly shocked. This is what happens when you have developers who have talked about how they focused really heavily on diversity and inclusivity initiatives instead of just making a genuinely great experience. They really did throw out a lot of what made Dragon Age special. They modernized this franchise, and it did not turn out to be the success that they wanted. And I can't say I feel all that bad, because at the end of the day, if you create a trash product, you deserve to get criticized for it, and that is exactly what has happened with Veilguard. So I will be keeping my eye on the media and the way that they react, but we at least have Kotaku seemingly getting upset over the fact that culture war BS and development hell killed this game, when really it was just a trash experience. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.